Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, hosted by Bruce Hutchin, in episode number 159.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Tricia Kaiser joins us today from Country Camel Outdoors, where she's on the pro staff. She's a Michigan huntress, and she started hunting with her father when she was 5 years old. They raised black and tan coonhounds, so the majority of her childhood was spent in the woods at night chasing raccoons. They also raised rabbit dogs, but they loved to get out into the deer woods, and they spent many hours together. And you'll hear about some of the lessons learned today on the show. She has 3 daughters, and one of her daughters has some challenges. So helping to educate the public that people with disabilities can do the same things that you can is a passion of hers as well.
Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and we're heading over to Michigan today, and we're going to head up to the northern part of the state, sort of, kind of, and we're going to talk to Tricia Kaiser. Now, Tricia really likes to hunt, so ladies, get a pen and pencil out, and guys, you might learn something from this lady also. Tricia, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. Say, let's just jump right into it. When you were 5 years old, you started hunting with your father. Let's talk about the hunting tradition and how that got kicked off by your dad.
Yeah, my dad and my grandpa raised coonhounds, so I grew up chasing dogs through the woods at night with him, and he was getting ready to go out one night, and I was about 5 years old, and I asked him if I could go, and he said yep, and I was hooked ever since then. So every night, every weekend, we were in the woods and helped him train dogs, and it was probably the best part of my childhood, and that's what really got me hooked on all kinds of hunting, but back then it was mostly coon hunting, so yeah, it was fun.
So you ran black and tans?
We did, yep. We had a few other breeds here and there, blue ticks and walkers, but we were stuck on the black dogs, so mostly black and tans. We had up to 25 at one point.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they were really into coon hunting back then, so we used them for mostly coon, but they'd run a bobcat or a bear here and there, so.
Well, just, tell people who probably aren't familiar because, running raccoons with dogs is still big in some parts of the country, but in a lot of parts it's kind of a dying sport. So why don't you just share a little bit about, how you trained them and why you would hunt at night and if you stayed up all night and how do you get your homework done?
Yeah, it's really sad to see that it really is a dying sport, especially here in Michigan. There are not a lot of people that hunt anymore. The prices of pelts have gone way down, and so people just got out of it. We were never money hunters. We hunted just for the love and the sport of it. So we would raise and breed our own dogs, so we always had our own bloodlines, but we'd start them out as young as we could. 10, 12 weeks old, we'd trap raccoons and get the dogs on some groundwork there, drag the hides up the trees, start there, and then once, they were 4 or 5 months old, we'd start taking them out in the woods with the older dogs, and we always tried to keep 2 or 3 older hounds that were good with trailing and treeing to teach the puppies, but it was every weekend, all night long, just from dark until morning. Some nights we would hunt all night long, go to breakfast in the morning, and do it again the next night. So a lot of work and a lot of time, but it was probably the best part of my childhood.
Now, why did you run at night?
Well, most people do coon hunt at night just because coons seem to be a little bit more nocturnal. We would run them during the day if we were training the dogs, but at least around here, the coons run more at night, so we stuck with that.
Now, how did running the dogs turn into making you or helping you become a whitetail hunter?
Well, running the dogs was what really got me hooked on hunting, and then we also I would deer hunt with my dad and rabbit hunt and squirrel hunt and all of that stuff. So about 10 or 15 years ago, I got out of coon hunting and kind of wanted to get into everything else. So I started deer hunting again pretty hard, and I hit that hard now and go with that. So
now, do you use a bow or rifle, or tell us about the equipment that you use for whitetail hunting?
Well, I do both. Actually, I do bow and then rifle, and then we also have muzzleloader season here in Michigan. So our bow season runs from October to the end of December. So I bow hunt as much as I can, and I really got heavy into that again last year, and I love the bow hunting. And then we have a 2-week season in November for rifle, and then about 10 days in December that you can muzzle load. So we've got quite a few options here to go with, but bow hunting is the main one for me.
So what's so special about bow hunting for you?
I think it's just a little bit more challenging than a rifle. You have to be more patient. You have to be more quiet. The skill level is a little bit higher with bow hunting. A rifle, you still have to aim and pull the trigger, but with the bow, you have to make sure that you have the right weight and, you're steady and you don't get the shakes too bad, which was my big thing when I started. I'd get the nerves and then drop the arrows. And so you kind of have to teach yourself the patience and to breathe and just relax a little bit more. So, the deer have to get closer to you. So it's a little bit more of an adrenaline rush for me than a rifle is. So I like that a lot more.
What type of gear do you use?
I have a Diamond Infinite Edge, and then we use Black Eagle arrows is what I prefer, and then the Executioner broadheads. I use a TrueFire wrist release, and then for a rifle, it just depends. This last year I hunted with a 7mm Remington, so that was fun.
Now let's talk about your scent control. So I'm assuming you're tree stand hunting, or you're hunting out of a ground blind?
I do both, mostly out of the tree stand, but if I bring my girls out with me because they like to go sit with me once in a while, I will sit on the ground blind because I don't like having them up in the tree yet. They're still kind of young, so we'll hunt out of a ground blind, but mostly in the tree. And then I try to wash my camo in the scent control laundry soap, and then I use the scent spray. I'll either use the scent blocker spray, or last year I used some white acorn scent. We're surrounded by a lot of hardwoods where I'm at, so the deer are really into the acorns here, so I would use the white acorn scent for cover, try to mask that. So
now, how important to you, in your experience, is scent control?
I think it is a pretty big deal, at least for me. We have a lot of open ground here, fairly windy in my area most of the time in October, so the deer are on to you very quickly. And I think it's important to cover yourself up as much as you can, either with like the scent blocker type of camo or the scent control spray or something. If you're in the woods, use like the white acorn scent, or if you're hunting the cornfields, I know that some companies make like a sweet corn scent. You're going to want to use something like that, so it gives you a better chance of them not catching on to you.
Now, do you use rubber boots?
I do, yes.
And who makes those?
I have the Under Armour. I can't think of the name of the exact brand, but yeah, I use the Under Armour knee-high rubber boots, and those work fairly well for at least our early season, October, early November. When it gets a little bit colder, I wear Irish Setter Gore-Tex type boots.
Now let's talk about the utilization of scent in September, October, or during the rut.
Mm-hmm. October, Our rut here starts usually around the second or third week of November, which is kind of right in the middle of our bow season and going into our rifle season. So I don't tend to use the scent control as much then because the deer here go a little bit crazy and they don't really care if you're out there anyways. But definitely all of October I use the scent control as much as I can. And then in the late season, like for our muzzle loader season in December, I'll use the scent control then as well because they're a little bit more spooky by then. They've been through 2 seasons, so they catch on you fairly quick at that time.
How about the utilization of scent attractants? It could be urine, it could be wafers, it could be, spray, all different types. But what do you use and why do you use it?
I use the doe urine, like on the wicker sticks that you hang from the tree branches. I'll usually put a couple of them out, and then I'll also do a drag. Like I'll tie a drag to my boot, which some people say you shouldn't do that with the bucks, especially during the rut. But I don't use that during the rut for that reason. But early bow season, my dad and I both will do a drag and then use the wicker sticks from the tree branches with the doe urine, just trying to get them in a little bit closer.
Okay, let's talk about drags and why some people say don't use them during the rut. I have my own opinion, but I want to hear yours first. Talk to us about the utilization of drags.
I don't care to use the drags during the rut just because the bucks around here are so crazy. For instance, this last bow season, I happened to be sitting in my stand, and I had a buck just come hauling through the corn about 10 yards from me and never stopped. He was following the wicker stick that we had in the tree. I just don't like using them for safety issues, just because I hunt a lot of cornfields, and I don't ever know when the deer are going to come out of the corn. You can't see them, obviously. You can hear them, but they can be on you quicker than you'll realize. So I do it more out of safety concerns than anything else.
When you think about hunting today, and we're going to change it up a little bit, and you and I in the warm-up talked about kids. Now, how can hunters, men, women, old, young, do more to get kids into the outdoors?
I think the biggest thing is just taking, if you have a niece or a nephew or a grandchild or even a friend's kid, just take them along with you. Even if they say that they might not be interested in it, they won't know until they get out there. My oldest daughter is going to be 13 this year, but when she was 8, my dad asked her if she wanted to go out, and she didn't think that she would like it, but she went out with them because she wanted to be with Grandpa, and she fell in love, and she's been hunting since she was 9 years old. She shot 4 deer. She lives for it now. So to me, it's just very important to get kids out there. They are the future of our sport, and without the kids carrying on that, the sport's just going to die, and that would be a horrible thing.
So what specifically do you do other than your own kids to get or invite kids out?
My nephew comes and hunts on our property. We have a 90-acre farm, and in Michigan they do a youth hunt in one weekend in September, and so we try to get kids to come out and hunt our farm during that youth hunt, whether it be the nieces and nephews or friends' kids or even my nephew's friends. I'll say, hey, have you ever wanted to get into hunting? And even if they don't want to shoot anything, we'll invite them to come out and at least sit with us so they can experience that. And usually after they've been out a couple times, they realize how fun it really is, and then they want to start shooting the guns and the bows and get into all that stuff. So I try to influence as many of the kids that I know as I can that don't hunt to get out there or to come along with me. And I do the same with friends of mine that are women that might not necessarily have anybody to go out with. I always invite them to come out with me so they can experience that too.
How hard is it for women that don't really have a hunting tradition behind them to get knowledgeable in the sport?
I don't know that it's so much hard as they maybe are more afraid to get into it just because of, well, you're a girl and girls can't do the same things that boys do. Like when we grow up, they tell us girls can't play baseball and girls can't play football. And so I think that as a woman, we keep that in our head that, because we're a girl, we can't pull a bow back or we can't load our own gun or anything. And so I think a lot of women might be afraid to just ask somebody to help them with that, and as a woman, I think it's easier to open up to another woman to go, hey, this is kind of what I'm nervous about or what I need help with. Can you help me? And so I think it's a little bit more difficult for us, but, if you're a strong-minded woman, you can do whatever you want to. So I was lucky that I had my dad, as a great mentor, and so I never had that issue, but a lot of people aren't that lucky,
So if you just give some advice to a husband, a boyfriend about getting their wife or girlfriend out, what would that be?
I would say just ask her to go with you. You might not think, especially if she's like a girly girl and likes the makeup and the glittery stuff, and you might not think that would be something that she wants to do, but just ask her to go. If nothing else, it's time that you can spend together. But you never know. She might outshoot you or show you up on that, but just ask them to go with you and go buy them a bow or buy them a gun or even buy a camo sweatshirt, and, stuff like that is what really gets a lot of people started with it. Or sit them down and watch hunting shows with them and talk to them about what's going on and take them to an archery range or a rifle range or something like that. Just get them out there with you. Just ask them. Get them out there.
In the warm-up, we talked about doing it right. So can you explain to the listeners what that means?
Well, for me, it's just, I know a lot of people think that, especially anti-hunters are just, we're very unethical and the animal stands no chance. And it's practicing. For me, it's practicing getting your shots down, do your target practice with your bow, with your rifle so that you know that you're going to make an ethical kill. That's my biggest thing is I won't take a shot unless I know that it's going to be lethal because I don't want to see an animal suffer. I don't want to shoot a deer with my bow and have it run 150, 200, 300 yards and just suffer. So if it's going to be a gut shot or anything, I won't take it. So just be confident, practice, make sure that your shots are on, and make sure everything is tuned in so that you're not, if it's too windy, don't shoot. If it's too far out, don't shoot. Just make sure that it's there so that it's an ethical, quick kill. Try to drop them as quick as you can, and then they don't suffer. We don't hunt. We don't want animals to suffer when we hunt. That's, at least for me, that's not why I don't hunt for the kill. I hunt to feed my family. So I want it to be done as quickly and as humanely as possible.
Now, do you have your own set limits of, how far you'll shoot, what type of shots you'll take? Do you have to be standing? Can you take a needle down shot? Talk to us about your own standards.
I do. When I am bow hunting, I don't like to shoot more than 25 or 30 yards just because I'm not that confident that I can make an ethical shot at that point. If it's a little bit too windy, I won't shoot either. I do sitting and standing shots either way. They both work for me, but I won't shoot over 25, 30 yards with my bow. When it comes to my rifle, I try to stay within 75 to 100 yards. I can shoot farther than that. I just choose not to because at that distance, I'm very comfortable knowing that the shot that I place is going to be where it needs to be and that animal's not going to suffer. So I try not to shoot any farther than where I'm comfortable just so I know it's going to be there.
Now, how much time a year do you spend shooting your rifle and shooting your bow prior to hunting seasons?
I shoot all year long. As soon as I even shoot outside in the snow, Michigan, the weather, you just never know. It's going to be crazy. Like this past weekend, it was 50 degrees, and then yesterday we got 6 inches of snow. So I get outside and I shoot my bow from January all through the year. And then I also go to indoor target ranges. So I'm shooting my bow all year long. And when it comes to the rifle and the muzzleloader, I usually shoot about 2 weeks before season starts just to sight it in. And then I put the gun away so that I know the scope's not getting knocked or anything like that. I don't spend countless hours shooting. I usually put 3 or 4 rounds through just to make sure that there's a nice group there, and then I leave it at that. But my bow, I definitely shoot all year long, and some of that is just because it's a good stress reliever too, but you want to make sure that you're really on when it comes to your bow and arrow.
Now, let's talk about your passion for hunting. You said in the warm-up, in the pre-show, you said, I love to hunt. Now, that might be strange to a lot of our listeners that aren't, thoroughly immersed in the sport. So just let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, like I said, I started when I was 5, and I just fell in love with it. And it, like I said, it's not about the kill for me. 9 times out of 10, I don't even see anything when I go out hunting. It's just being out in nature and being in the peace and quiet and having that time to reflect on all the things that bother you or, that you're stressed out about, and time to talk to yourself. And I always say that when I'm in the tree stand or my deer blind, that's where I go for my church. That's where I let go of all of my problems and I just de-stress and I love everything about it, being in nature and the sounds and the feeling that you get when you're out there. It's just you and your bow or you and your gun, and there's nothing else around you. And it's definitely more about just reconnecting with everything than it is even about killing anything. And I got that from my dad, so I can thank him for that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, like anybody, like everybody, I shouldn't say anybody, like everybody, we all have challenges in life, and you got some in your life with your daughter. And what recommendations or ideas would you share with some other men and women that are raising kids by themselves? And they do have some challenges. What would you tell them about getting those kids into the outdoors?
Yeah, it's a great time to reconnect with your kids. I have 3 daughters. My oldest one will be 13 soon, and she's into hunting, like I said. And then my middle daughter was born with Down syndrome, so that in itself is a huge daily challenge. Any kid is a challenge, but when you throw in a child with special needs, it's that much harder. And then my little one just turned 6, so we use that time as our time to spend together. We don't get a lot of mommy-daughter time, obviously. When there's 3 of them, it's hard to split your time up between them. But I use that time with my girls to just reconnect with them. We'll go out and we'll sit and we'll talk about things that bother them or, stuff like that. And it's just really nice to have that one-on-one alone time with them that way. And it helps me unwind and de-stress from, the day-to-day, schoolwork and homework. And then I work a full-time job and dealing with the stress of having a child with a disability. And it's just our time to unwind and just forget everything else and just be mom and daughter. So that's huge for me.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah. When you think about lessons learned over the last couple of years, good ones and bad ones, can you share a couple of lessons learned with our audience?
Yeah. Bad lessons for me, definitely don't get too confident. Don't go out thinking that you're going to be, as my dad calls it, the great white hunter and kill everything that you see and that you've got this and you're going to bring home this big trophy buck, because I think letting your ego get in the way is a big thing for me. I went out the first year, we were surrounded by deer, and I went out saying, yep, I'm going to kill everything I see. And I missed 3 deer. And that just really was like a wake up call, like, okay, So don't let your ego get in the way. Don't go out and take that experience for granted. When it comes to good lessons, for me, it's just practice. Trust yourself that you can do it. When I started with my bow, I started heavy again last year shooting my bow, and it was the first time in about 15 years that I had shot, and I was very unsure with it, and just, I went out hunting, and I thought, this is never going to happen. I'm not going to do it. So just trust that you can do it, especially as a woman. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not good enough, or, girls can't do this or girls can't do that. Just trust that you have the skill there. Practice all of the time. If you miss, just take it as a loss. Go back and practice shooting, or recite your rifle, or whatever you need to do. Just suck it up and get right back into it. Don't let a missed shot or a wounded animal that you didn't find, don't let that stop you. Don't let it kill the passion for you.
Thanks for sharing that. That's really good information. And we're winding up at the end of the show here, so I want to give you the opportunity. If somebody wants to get a hold of you or ask you a question, share with us what your social networks are, and if you have any sponsors or people that you want to give a shout out to, now's the time to do it.
Sure. Back in September, I joined the group Country Camo Outdoors, which was co-founded by Gina and Larry Mitchell, which are 2 awesome people. So that has been a grand adventure for me. So we have a Facebook page, Country Camo Outdoors, and we also have countrycamooutdoors.com that you can find us all on. And then I have my own Facebook page, which is Michigan Huntress, that I just you can follow me through just my adventures here hunting in Michigan and wherever I seem to go. And then we are also on Instagram and Camo Photo under Country Camo. So there's quite a few ways to connect with all of us through that. And we're quite a big team, and it's a great group of people, a lot of experience, and we welcome questions and fan pictures and all of that stuff. So you can get us through any of those sites.
Now, what's been the biggest thing with getting connected with Gina and Larry that's helped you become a better hunter?
Knowing that there are other women that love to hunt as much as I do out there has been the biggest thing for me. Gina and I have gotten very close, and she loves to hunt just as much as I do, and she didn't grow up in the woods like I did. And just she fell in love with it through Larry. And so knowing that there are women out there that are confident in the hunting and they love to talk about it as much as I do, especially because I don't have a lot of friends that love to do that like I do. And so being able to connect with her, and then we have another lady in the group from Canada that is the same way about it. And so that's been huge. And just making the friendships with them that we've all developed has been great. It's been like a huge hunting family, and it's an awesome thing to be a part of.
Well, Tricia, thank you. And on behalf of the Whitetail Rendezvous Nation throughout North America, we're really excited to have you on the show today. And it's amazing how fast these segments go when you start talking to people who are passionate, like yourself, about hunting. So thank you for being the guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.